You'll freeze to death by morning, the survival expert said, loud enough for the entire expo hall to hear. Marcus Webb didn't flinch. He'd heard worse. Plenty worse in the 3 years since he'd lost his architecture firm, his reputation, his certainty that the world made sense. But this was different. This time, his 12-year-old daughter was listening. Emma stood at the back of the crowd gathered around his booth at the Denver Survival Expo, her backpack still slung over one shoulder, cheeks pink from the February cold outside. She'd insisted on coming after school, wanted to see her dad present his big idea to people who mattered. Now she was watching those same people tear it apart. Doctor. Raymond Cole stepped closer to Marcus's display board, arms crossed over his expensive winter jacket. Thermal engineer, published researcher, the kind of credentialed expert who could kill a concept with 3 words. Cole said, voice dripping with the particular condescension reserved for amateurs. Quote 3. Marcus met his gaze. Quote 4. Cole laughed. The crowd joined him, 20, maybe 30 people, outdoor enthusiasts, gear manufacturers, YouTube survivalists looking for content. All of them certain they were watching a man embarrass himself. Cole continued. Emma's fingers tightened around her backpack strap. Marcus saw it, saw the exact moment doubt crept into his daughter's eyes. If you're just tuning in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and if you've ever tried winter camping. Your support means everything. Now let's dive in. Marcus had spent 6 months designing this shelter. 6 months of calculations, material tests, sleepless nights, wondering if he'd lost his mind along with his career. The concept was simple enough that a child could understand it, complex enough that experts dismissed it without testing. Semi-buried construction, triple-layer insulation, minimal interior volume, strategic ventilation, no firewood required. The theory was sound. He'd run the numbers 100 times. Heat generated by 2 adult humans, roughly 200 watts combined. Small insulated space, rapid thermal saturation, underground construction, Earth's stable temperatures baseline, air gaps, convection barriers. It worked on paper. Paper didn't prepare you for Raymond Cole's smirk. I'll make you a deal, Mr. Webb, Cole said, pulling out his phone. I'll put $50,000 into an escrow account right now. You take this fantasy shelter of yours up into the Rockies. 72 hours, no fire, February conditions. If you maintain your claimed temperature differential for the full duration, the money's yours. The crowd went quiet. Someone coughed. A camera clicked. And if I don't, Marcus asked, you publicly admit your design is fraudulent? You stop presenting at expos, stop selling plans online, stop giving false hope to people who might actually die following your advice? Marcus looked past Cole to where Emma stood frozen, her eyes huge. 12 years old, and already she'd learned that the world didn't believe in her father. Kids at school called him the crazy inventor. Teachers looked at her with pity when she mentioned his projects. She'd defended him anyway, fierce and stubborn, her mother's daughter in every way that mattered. Now she needed him to be right. Not on paper, in reality. I accept, Marcus said quietly, with one condition. Cole raised an eyebrow. What? My daughter comes with me. The crowd erupted, voices overlapping, some outrage, others excited by the spectacle. Cole's expression shifted from amusement to something harder. Quote, 15. Quote, 16. Marcus corrected. Quote, 17. Emma pushed through the crowd, small for her age, dark hair in a ponytail, wearing the ratty Colorado Rockies sweatshirt she'd claimed from his closet months ago. She stopped beside him, chin lifted. When do we leave, Dad? Marcus looked at his daughter, then at the crowd of doubters. At Cole's raised phone already recording, at the future that hung on the next 72 hours. Quote, 24 hours later, Marcus stood at the base of Mount Evans with a truck full of equipment and a daughter who hadn't stopped asking questions since they'd left Denver. Quote 20, Emma asked, breath visible in the morning air. Quote 21. Marcus said, hauling insulation panels from the truck bed. Quote 22. Quote 23. Quote 24. The wind hit 40 miles per hour before they'd even finished the foundation. Emma's fingers were numb inside her gloves. They'd chosen the worst possible location deliberately. 11,000 feet elevation, exposed ridge with minimal tree cover. Dr. Cole had insisted, wanting no advantages of a lower altitude or natural windbreaks. Marcus had agreed. If the shelter worked here, it worked anywhere. Emma drove the first shovel into frozen ground at 7:15 a.m. By 8:30, they'd cleared enough snow to reach soil. By 10 o'clock, they dug 3 feet down, Emma's face red with exertion, her breath coming hard in the thin air. Quote 25, she said, pausing to wipe sweat despite the cold. Quote 26. Marcus stopped digging, looked at her, really looked, so exhaustion and fear and trust all mixed together in her dark eyes. Quote 27, he said. Quote 28. Quote 29. Quote 30. She nodded slowly, picked up her shovel again, kept digging. Dr. Cole arrived at noon with a film crew, temperature sensors, and thermal imaging cameras, 3 vehicles worth of equipment to document Marcus's failure. They set up monitoring stations at 50-foot intervals, planted external thermometers, mounted cameras with battery packs rated for sub-zero temperatures. Cole approached the dig site, expensive boots crunching through snow. Webb, you're actually going through with this? Did you open the escrow account? Marcus asked, not looking up from where he was laying the first insulation panel. This morning, $50,000 waiting for you if you can prove heat loss doesn't exist. Cole crouched, examining Marcus's work. Cole said, and for a moment he sounded almost impressed. Then he shook his head. Quote 37. A young woman with a camera approached. Blogger, Marcus guessed. She'd been at the expo taking notes. Mr. Webb, can I ask why you're risking this? What's the point? Marcus straightened, joints protesting. Emma had moved to the entrance tunnel, carefully packing snow around the support frame. Because people die of cold every winter, he said. Homeless populations, disaster victims, refugees. And we keep acting like shelter requires resources most people don't have. Firewood, generators, infrastructure. He gestured at the half-built structure. This requires dirt, snow, and basic materials. If it works, it changes everything. And if it doesn't, then I was wrong. And Dr. Cole gets to say he told me so. And your daughter? Marcus followed her gaze to Emma, who was now testing the structural integrity of the entrance with careful pressure. My daughter believes in trying impossible things. I'm not going to teach her to stop. The blogger nodded, typed something on her phone. Marcus turned back to the work. By 4 p.m., the walls were complete. By 5:30, they had installed a ventilation system, a carefully calculated opening that would allow CO2 to escape and fresh air to enter without creating significant heat loss. By 6:45, as the sun dropped toward the western peaks and temperature plummeted, they'd seal everything except the entrance tunnel. Emma crawled inside first. Marcus followed, pulling equipment. The space was claustrophobic, deliberately so, 6 feet by 8 feet, barely enough room for 2 sleeping bags side by side. Emma sat cross-legged on her bag, headlamp illuminating the curved interior walls. It feels smaller than I thought, she said. That's good, less volume to heat. Marcus placed 3 thermometers at different heights, set up the data logger that would record temperature every 30 minutes, hung a small battery-powered lamp from the ceiling hook. Outside, someone shouted, Cole's voice. Quote 48. Marcus checked his interior thermometer. 34 degrees. They were already warmer than the outside by 42 degrees, just from the insulation alone. He looked at Emma. She shook her head. Marcus felt something crack in his chest. Pride mixed with fear, mixed with love, so fierce it hurt. Quote 51. They packed snow into the entrance tunnel, leaving just enough ventilation. Marcus fitted the final insulation panel, checked the door seal. At 8:47 p.m., he recorded the temperatures in his notebook. Outside, -8 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside, 34 degrees Fahrenheit. Differential, 42 degrees. Emma looked at the thermometer, then at her father. Quote 52. Quote 53. Marcus said quietly. But working for 3 hours and working for 3 days were different universes. The thermometer read 28 degrees Fahrenheit at midnight, 4 degrees below freezing. Dr. Cole's voice crackled over the radio Marcus had left near the entrance. It's over. Webb, come out before you both get hypothermia. Emma was awake. Marcus could tell by her breathing, the way she'd gone rigid in her sleeping bag. He switched on his headlamp, checked the data logger. The temperature had dropped 6 degrees since they'd sealed the entrance. Dad, Emma whispered, it's not working. Dr. Cole was right. Marcus sat up, careful not to hit his head on the low ceiling. His breath didn't quite fog anymore. The air felt wrong, cold. He'd expected this, theoretically, but theory didn't prepare you for your daughter's fear. Emma, listen to me, he said, keeping his voice steady. The shelter is breathing. That's what I call it, breathing. What does that mean? When we first sealed it, we trapped warm air from outside, 34 degrees. But that air wasn't heated by our bodies yet. It was heated by the sun during the day, by the work we did building. Now that air is escaping through our ventilation, being replaced by colder air. The shelter is purging the old temperature and starting fresh. So it gets colder before it gets warmer? Exactly. Thermal mass takes time to saturate. 4 to 6 hours for a space this size with 2 people. We've only been sealed for 3 hours. Emma's hand found his in the darkness. Quote 63, quote 64, he admitted. Quote 65. Cole's radio crackled again. Marcus, I'm not joking. Below freezing in an enclosed space is dangerous. Your daughter needs medical evaluation. Come out now. Emma looked at her father. Marcus looked back. Your choice, he said. We can leave. Dr. Cole's right that it's cold. He might be right about the danger. But you don't think so? No, I think we're exactly where the science says we should be at hour 3, but I won't make you stay if you're scared. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could hear the wind outside, a distant howl against the mountain, could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. I'm scared, Dad, Emma said finally, but fear doesn't make this science wrong. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He pulled her close. No, it doesn't. They stayed. At 3 a.m., Marcus checked the thermometer again. 31 degrees Fahrenheit, rising, 3 degrees warmer than midnight. At 6 a.m., as gray light filtered through their ventilation hole, 38 degrees Fahrenheit, stable. Outside temperature, according to Cole's equipment, minus 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Differential, 53 degrees. Cole's radio didn't crackle at dawn. No demands to exit, no safety warnings, just silence. Marcus crawled to the ventilation hole, peered out. The film crew was packing equipment in the pre-dawn gloom, moving slowly, efficiently. No one looked toward the shelter. Emma pressed her face next to his, looking out at the pink-lit peaks. Quote 74, she whispered. Marcus pulled her close, but the real test wasn't one night. It was 72 hours, and the storm was coming. The blizzard hit at 2 p.m. on day 2, with winds that bent trees horizontal. Marcus sat cross-legged in the shelter, notebook balanced on his knee, recording temperature every hour. Emma lay on her sleeping bag, reading The Martian by headlamp, occasionally reading sections aloud about survival and math, and not dying in impossible conditions. Outside, minus 28 degrees Fahrenheit, according to the last radio transmission before Cole's team lost signal. Inside, 42 degrees Fahrenheit and holding steady. Emma paused mid-sentence. Quote, 76, quote, 77, quote, 78. Marcus smiled, set down his notebook. The shelter felt almost comfortable now, warm enough that they'd unzipped their sleeping bags. Their body heat, after 30 hours of accumulation, had transformed the space into something that defied every expert's prediction. Above them, the storm raged. Snow fell so thick Marcus couldn't see 3 feet beyond the ventilation hole. Wind screamed across the ridge, but inside their buried cocoon the temperature held. His phone buzzed. Signal had returned briefly between storm bands. 47 messages, most from Emma's number before they'd left Denver, friends wishing her luck, but others, strangers. The blogger from yesterday had posted video. Thermal camera footage showing the shelter's heat signature glowing orange against the blue-white frozen landscape. The video had 2 million views. Comments scrolled past, some supportive, some still skeptical, many demanding updates. Emma's phone buzzed too. She looked at the screen, eyes widening. Dad! My friend Jasmine says we're trending on TikTok. Someone made a reaction video to the thermal footage. What kind of reaction? The kind where they can't believe it's real. Emma scrolled. Oh, Dr. Cole posted something. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. What did he say? Emma read aloud, voice flat. Dr. Raymond Cole shares. While temperature readings are encouraging, the real test is duration and safety. I maintain serious concerns about CO2 levels, structural integrity in storm conditions, and long-term viability. Will continue monitoring. He can't just admit he was wrong, Emma said. No one can when they've staked their reputation on being right. A voice called from outside, muffled by snow and the wind but audible. Marcus Webb, park ranger, are you okay in there? Marcus moved to the entrance, called back. We're fine. Temperature stable at 42 degrees. Copy that. We've got about 30 people at the observation point wanting updates. Also 3 news crews. You're kind of famous. Emma grinned at her father. Kind of famous, Dad. Kind of freezing to death by morning, according to some people. Not anymore. The storm intensified through the afternoon. Marcus recorded temperatures every 30 minutes. 41 degrees Fahrenheit, 43 degrees Fahrenheit, 42 degrees Fahrenheit, 44 degrees Fahrenheit. The shelter wasn't just maintaining temperature, it was improving. There was sustained body heat that fully saturated the thermal mass. The underground earth, the snow walls, the air itself had become a battery of warmth. At 6 p.m., during a brief lull in the storm, voices approached outside. Underscore, quote, underscore, 93, underscore, a man's voice. Young. Nervous. I'm Marcus Tran, engineering student from CU Boulder. My team and I have been monitoring your data. Can we set up equipment to measure your ventilation rates? Emma looked at her father. Marcus moved to the entrance. Why? Because if you're really maintaining 40 plus degrees with just body heat and this much air exchange, you've solved a problem my thermodynamics professor said was impossible. We want to document it for our thesis. Marcus hesitated, then set up whatever you need. Just don't block our ventilation. Thank you, sir. This is incredible. You're incredible. Emma nudged her father. You're incredible, Dad. I'm cold, tired, and running out of granola bars. You're all those things and incredible. By nightfall on day 2, the observation point had grown to 30 plus people, engineering students, a wilderness medicine doctor who had hiked up to monitor them for signs of hypothermia, a park ranger documenting the shelter for the Forest Service, YouTube survivalists filming reaction content, and somewhere out there, according to radio chatter, Dr. Cole's crew setting up for one more night of monitoring. If you believe innovation comes from people brave enough to try what experts say is impossible, hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. The blizzard roared through the night. Marcus barely slept, listening to the wind, checking temperatures, marking data points. Emma dozed fitfully, occasionally waking to ask if everything was okay. At 11 p.m., Cole's voice crackled on the radio. Marcus responded. Silence. Then, quote 107, quote 108, quote 109, quote 110. Another long silence. When Cole spoke again, his voice was different, quieter. Cole's radio clicked off. No goodbye, no apology. Just the sound of footsteps crunching away through snow. Emma sat up. Is he leaving? Marcus checked his watch. Probably until morning. He's seen enough to know we're not dying tonight. But not enough to admit you were right. Some people need to lose before they can admit someone else won. Cole's crew left at dawn on day 3. No goodbye, no apology. Just tire tracks in fresh snow, heading down the mountain. Emma watched them go through the ventilation hole. Underscore quote underscore 119 underscore Marcus nodded. Quote 120. The final 12 hours would be the longest, not because of the cold, because the world was watching. Quote 121. Emma said at hour 68, quote 122. Marcus had been dreading this question, hoping she wouldn't ask, knowing she would because she was too smart not to. He set down his temperature log, looked at his daughter in the headlamp's glow. Quote 123, he said. Quote 124. Emma went very still. Quote 125. Quote 126. Quote 127. quote 128. Marcus met her eyes, quote 129. Emma stared at him. Marcus watched emotions cross her face: anger, confusion, understanding. Quote 130, she said finally. He reached for her hand. She was quiet for a long time. Outside, voices called to each other. The observation crowd growing as the final hours approached. Someone was grilling food. Marcus could smell it through the ventilation. Emma said finally. She squeezed his hand. At hour 72 exactly, Marcus checked the final temperature reading. Outside, minus 18 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside, 45 degrees Fahrenheit, differential, 63 degrees. He wrote it in his notebook with hands that shook slightly, not from cold, from relief so profound it felt like drowning in reverse. Quote 144, he said. Emma grinned, fierce and proud, and entirely her mother's daughter. Ready when you are, Dad. They unsealed the entrance together, packed insulation away, crawled through the tunnel into blinding daylight and a wall of sound. Over 100 people had gathered. Cameras flashed, someone started clapping, then everyone was clapping, cheering. A park ranger was shaking Marcus's hand. Engineering students were surrounding Emma, asking questions. And through it all, Marcus stood blinking in the February sun, trying to process that they'd done it. Actually done it. Proven the impossible wasn't. The wilderness medicine doctor checked them both over. Perfect vital signs, no signs of hypothermia, frostbite, or distress. Quote 146, she said, shaking her head. Quote 147. The engineering students presented data they'd gathered: ventilation rates, heat transfer coefficients, thermal imaging time lapses showing the shelter's heat signature strengthening over 72 hours. Quote 148, Marcus Tran said. Quote 149. The YouTube survivalist had 3 cameras on Marcus. Quote 150. Marcus looked at Emma. She looked back. Quote 15. One, he said. Quote 152. 3 days later, Marcus sat in a conference room in downtown Denver across from representatives from one of the country's largest outdoor gear companies. We want to fund full production, the woman said. Michelle Something, Director of Innovation. $2 million initial investment. Military is interested for emergency shelters, search and rescue teams, disaster relief organizations. But more than that, she slid a folder across the table. We want to fund a pilot program. Homeless populations in Denver, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Build and deploy 47 shelters before next winter. Marcus opened the folder. Construction plans, material lists, budget breakdowns, partnership agreements with homeless advocacy groups. Why 47? He asked. That's how many people died of cold-related exposure in those 3 cities last winter. Michelle's eyes were steady. Quote 158. Marcus thought about Emma, still defending him at school, but now with proof to back up her belief. Thought about Dr. Cole, who hadn't responded to any interview requests, but had quietly removed his critical blog posts. Thought about the 5 nights he'd spent alone testing this design, certain he was either saving the world or losing his mind. Quote 159, Marcus said. Quote 160. Quote 161. Michelle smiled. Quote 162. 6 months later, Marcus stood in a Denver park with Emma, teaching a group of homeless advocates how to construct emergency shelters using nothing but snow, dirt, and basic materials. The temperature was 8 degrees above zero. They'd built 3 shelters that day. People were already sleeping in them overnight, reporting temperatures in the 40s inside while the city froze around them. Emma worked alongside him, explaining thermal mass to a journalist, demonstrating ventilation system placement to a city council member, her confidence absolute. That's Shelter 47, she said, pointing to the completed structure on the far side of the park. Dad, we did it, 47. Marcus looked at his daughter, at the shelters dotting the landscape, at the people who would sleep warm tonight because he'd refused to believe, quote, 165, quote, was final. Quote, 166, quote, he asked. Emma grinned. Quote, 167, quote. The data from the first winter of shelter deployment was unambiguous. 3 lives saved during a February cold snap in Chicago, when temperatures dropped to -15 and the shelters maintained 42 degrees inside. 0 cold-related injuries among shelter users across all 3 cities. Maintenance cost under $50 per shelter for the entire winter. Dr. Raymond Cole published a paper in the Journal of Thermal Engineering titled _168_. He cited Marcus's design extensively, acknowledged his initial skepticism had been unfounded, proposed design improvements that could push the temperature differential even higher. He didn't apologize personally, but he sent the paper to Marcus with a handwritten note. Quote 169. Marcus showed the note to Emma. She read it twice. Emma presented her science fair project in May. She won first place. The judges were unanimous. One of them was her former teacher, who'd looked at her with pity when she'd mentioned her father's projects. No pity now, just respect. Marcus sat in the auditorium, watching his daughter accept her award, explaining heat transfer to a room full of parents and students and people who had once thought she was the crazy inventor's kid. She found him afterward, first place ribbon pinned to her jacket. They believe me, Dad. You gave them no choice. The data doesn't lie. Neither did you. She hugged him. Well, except about the test runs. But I forgive you. Generous of you. I'm a generous person. That summer, they built shelter number 93 together, a semi-permanent structure for a family displaced by flooding. The design had evolved. Cole's improvements had actually worked, but the core remained the same. Body heat, insulation, science that didn't require resources most people couldn't access. Emma was 13 now, taller, more confident, still wearing his ratty Colorado Rocky sweatshirt on cold mornings. Quote 181, she asked as they sealed the final wall panel. Marcus looked at his daughter, at the shelter they'd built, at the family who would sleep warm tonight because someone had believed the impossible was just science waiting to be proven. Whatever people say can't be done, he said. Emma grinned, fierce and proud and entirely ready for the next challenge. Perfect. Hi, lovely viewers. Thanks for watching till the end. This is a true story that shows what happens when someone refuses to let impossible stop them. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and click the notification bell for more inspiring stories like Marcus and Emma's. Your support means everything to creators like us who want to share stories of innovation, courage, and people who change the world by refusing to accept what experts claim can't be done.